Good afternoon. This is a meeting of the Westwood Select Board. It is Tuesday, June 23rd, and we have some preliminary things to handle, and then we'll move into the full agenda. So I'll start by granting Westwood Media Center permission to live stream this meeting and record the meeting. If people go on to the town website with the meeting notice, they will find ways to access this meeting. And as we've done with past meetings that have been held virtually, people can raise their hand, or Melinda, you're going to tell me again what people have access to. It's a raise the hand or a chat function?
It is not raise the hand.
Got it.
It would be under Q&A. And if you have a question, you would just type it in, and at the appropriate time, I will, once prompted, I will read it.
Thank you. I always confuse which format we're using and how people can ask questions. So thank you for that clarification. So I'd like to welcome anybody who is viewing this meeting that's taking place live. We're going to go into our initial agenda item, which is scheduled action to reorganize the select board. And I will just have to hop into my meeting agenda here. So as we do each year upon completion of the annual town meeting, and as we know, this year's town meeting for Westwood took place last Wednesday outdoors. So congratulations and thank you to everybody who made that meeting so successfully executed and really impressive under new circumstances. So thank you to everybody. So after that meeting, we reconstitute the board and reorganize the board with new officers. I've been serving as chair, but our normal policy is that the individual serving on the board in their second year of a 3-year term serves as chair, and the individual who's in the third year of a term serves as clerk, and the newly elected or re-elected person serves as the third member of the board. So I will start with, given, John, it's you and I right now in the meeting. How about I make the initial motion?
Okay.
And I'll move that John Hickey become chair of the select board for the following, I guess it's down to about 11 months, John, but the following term. So I make that motion.
Thank you. I second that motion.
Okay. Out of necessity, I will first ask Mr. Hickey your vote on that.
I'll vote aye.
And I vote aye as well. So Mr. Hickey, I now hand you the virtual gavel and
Thank
you
you.
can take over. So thank you.
Thank you. I do want to, should I nominate you now as clerk or do you want to do it later?
I think you should just do it right now.
Yeah. So I nominate Nancy Hyde as clerk of the select board for the upcoming term.
I'll second that.
And I will vote aye, and I'll ask your vote.
I say aye as well.
Congratulations, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
And more importantly, as is our tradition, and it's an important tradition, and I thank you for your vote as chair. But after the first meeting, immediately following town meeting, we reorganize. But more importantly than that, we reflect on the prior year and the service of the chair. And Nancy, I think it was a blessing for the town and for the board. And I know that I'm confident that Michael would agree with me, and Chris and Pam and the entire team, that all of your collective years of experience helped us through a truly unprecedented year. And we're really grateful for your leadership. Your guidance to the board throughout the past year in various capacities has included, but is not limited to, serving on the school building steering committee, the Hamlin School Project, selection of a new town administrator, governing during the COVID-19 pandemic. And beyond that, I think it's important to note that you attend so many meetings, not so much out of necessity or requirement, but your genuine engagement with the community and your involvement. And we really thank you for your leadership and your participation over the past year. There's some highlights that I want to go over, and it's lengthy, and it's deservedly lengthy, so I'm going to take a few minutes to read it. For all of the board last year, it was the first time that any of us had been through the experience of hiring a new town administrator. And under your leadership, you coordinated the first selection committee of a new town administrator in over 32 years. In June of 2019, Michael Gillette submitted his resignation as town administrator. The select board started the search for a new town administrator by hiring a consultant, Community Paradigm, and created the town administrator screening committee comprised of Westwood residents to help facilitate that search. Out of 38 applicants received and reviewed, 6 candidates were interviewed by the screening committee, and a list of 4 finalists were compiled. The 4 finalists were publicly interviewed in September 2019, and Christopher Coleman was selected as the new town administrator. Chris joined the town in December of 2019. Beyond that, we also formally elevated Pam Dukeman as assistant town administrator. And so I know that the town is just well suited with a great leadership team for the years to come. And really rounding that out, under your leadership, we appointed Patrick Ahern as town council. And again, we just have built a team that, bar none, is one of the strongest in municipal government. And so I thank you for your leadership on that. Within the finance realm, for the 22nd consecutive year, Westwood was awarded the Certificate of Financial Reporting. That's just amazing. We are one of very few communities to achieve that auspicious recognition. The Aid to the Elderly, we voted to support matching funds for the Aid to the Elderly, providing 49 recipients with $1,800 towards their real estate tax bill. In community and economic development, the Islington Center redevelopment continued. The new Westwood CVS opened in September 2019. During spring 2020, construction started at the old CVS site on Washington Street, and there are many more improvements to come, including the moving of Wentworth Hall to its new location. The housing production plan, Westwood for the first time produced a housing production plan in 2019, represented over a year of collaboration between the housing partnership and town staff. And approval will offer state safe harbor status offered to municipalities if they fall below the statutory minimum of 10% on the subsidized housing inventory plan. We also increased our new affordable housing units during the past year at both Pulte Place and 45 Clapwood Tree Street. Along the public safety lines, the fire department hired 4 new firefighters during fiscal year 2020. The select board participated in the groundbreaking for the fallen firefighter memorial at the Islington Fire Station. And really, you've been a leader on the School Building Steering Committee and Sustainability Committee. You've been an integral member of the School Building Steering and Sustainability Committee to help Westwood take important steps forward on the journey to modernize the elementary schools and enhance student learning. In 2018, Westwood was accepted into the Massachusetts School Building Authority program and entered into the feasibility stage in 2019. In 2019, Compass Management was hired as project manager and Dorr and Whittier as the design team. During the summer of 2020, the final school option will be voted on by the school committee and presented to the MSBA for approval. In the environmental arena, green communities and energy savings, the community electricity aggregation and good energy, at the May 2019 annual town meeting, residents voted to authorize the select board to enter into a contract to aggregate the electricity load for residents and businesses in the town of Westwood. A service agreement was entered with Good Energy LP to offer guidance to the town. In green communities, the town received $183,000 and over $45,000 in incentives for projects in 2019 that included a new pool water heater, unit ventilator replacements at the Thurston School, and classroom lighting at the Thurston School. Some community events. We renamed the meeting room at the police station after Michael Gillette in recognition of his many years of service. You were really a leader in implementing the first Westwood weekend stroll. That occurred on December 6th through the 8th. It included artist marketplace, a sing-along at the Fisher School, church fairs at the Baptist Church and First Parish, and the selling of commemorative winter scarves for this highly successful community event. And last, but certainly not least, your year as chair will always be remembered, as much of 2019 and 2020 will be, for all of the work that has occurred around the COVID-19 pandemic. And as chair, you led the board into a state of declaring an emergency, to help Westwood facilitate appropriate services at the appropriate times. We've established social distance board meetings. We've allowed people to participate as we should, and we've done a great job on that. We've offered tax relief to residents with extensions to pay their tax bills. An annual town meeting was held outdoors on Flayhigh Field. The reduced quorum of 44 registered, and luckily we wound up with 221 registered voters outside on a beautiful night on Flayhigh Field, with all participants practicing social distancing. We dealt only with the financial articles. One did not require a vote. So Nancy, honestly, you should be commended. This was a really difficult year. I know you did a lot of work. You really went above and beyond. Again, I know I speak for Michael and the team, and we just really thank you. This will certainly be a year in the history books, and we will look back, and your leadership will stand out. So thank you.
Thank you. Can I just say something besides thank you? And it's nice to say that has to do with me, but it's really the team and everybody coming together. And I just want to say that as a select board, I think we came together in ways we didn't know we could this year to get really significant work done under very difficult times. And I think that that's really for the benefit of the town. And I'm really happy to have played a part in that. John, you should be proud. Michael Walsh should be proud because it was a hard year. So I think we have a lot to look back on and say, job well done, and we still have a lot of work to do. And thank you for all the kind words.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think sometimes these crises show us what we can do, right?
Yep.
So it was great. Okay, we're going to move on. So first up, we have a memorandum of agreement with SEIU. Joan, this looks mainly like an economic deal, 2% for 2 years, not changing any language. Anything much more beyond that you want to offer?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
So we have a tentative agreement with SEIU. It's our understanding that the union itself has yet to vote.
Okay.
We have the full confidence that they will certainly agree to this as the representation throughout the negotiations has agreed to this. My recommendation, if the board is inclined, would be to agree to this COA, or this memorandum of agreement, excuse me, contingent upon the SEIU voting in favor of it, and then allowing us to affix your electronic signatures to the MOA.
I'm fine with that, Nancy, if you are.
I am. I just want to ask what in looking at it in greater detail, I see that a big part of what was also accomplished is to integrate all the memorandums of understanding over the years into one integrated agreement. And so I think that that's great to see that that's accomplished. So we have something that captures everything over time. And I don't know if Joan wants to comment on that, but that's a really good thing to see that that was accomplished. Joan, do you want to?
Certainly like to hear from Joan, but I would also like to say, because she may not say this is due to her leadership. This is not just SEIU, this is all of our collective bargaining agreements. So Joan has been working with Labor Council to make sure that these were done in a way where the union officers could see the changes that were voted on memorandum of agreement by memorandum of agreement. So the process took a little bit longer, but through Joan's leadership, we're able to get those contracts integrated.
That's great.
Yeah, I know over the years, Chris, especially when you got here and Joan previously, that had been a source of frustration. So that's just a great accomplishment.
Okay, so is Joan there?
Joan just has to unmute herself, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Now we
Now we can hear.
Thank you. Okay, I thought Melinda had the key to my my voice, so sorry for that. Thank you for the kind words, and I appreciate Chris's vote of confidence and comments about leadership, but he's been a huge part of that as well. It's been great working with Chris on approaching these contracts in a different way than I'd been exposed to with Mike Gillette, who was obviously had a long, successful career. So it's been a great collaborative process, and I'm really excited that we'll finally have integrated contracts with all of the unions. So, and I too I echo Chris's. I'm very confident that we're going to do this deal with the SEIU, and so if you're comfortable saying that you agree in principle, I'm hoping to have this done. I was hoping to have it done for today, but didn't quite happen that way. The union hasn't voted yet.
So is this a two-step process, Chris, where first we're voting the memorandum of agreement and then going and voting the integrated agreement? Is that how we're being asked to do this?
Yes, there are two different scheduled action items.
Yeah, okay, so one leads to the other, I guess.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make the motion that the select board approve and sign a memorandum of agreement for a 2-year contract extension with the SEIU Local 888 contingent upon their approval and signing of the same.
And I'll second that. And Mrs. Hyde, I'll ask for your vote.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So that is a unanimous vote.
Okay.
Okay, and then Joan and Chris, I'm sorry. The integrated contract, this is really just a ministerial process. I mean, all the substantive issues have been dealt with since
That is
2017, and this is just a collection of all of those. So I don't have any issues, Nancy.
Yeah, and this covers through June 30th, 2019. So am I correct that this does not need to be a contingent vote? Or can somebody clarify?
I would suggest that, yeah, it's not, the SEIU and we have met together to go through this integrated contract, and we've agreed that this is the integrated contract based on all the multitude of MOAs. So there's no decision to be made. We're presenting it to you as this is our integrated contract.
Okay,
so again, they would have signed, but.
So it covers through June 30th,
Yeah.
2019, because we just approved a memorandum of agreement for a 2-year extension on
Exactly.
that integrated contract. Okay.
Yeah.
So I move that the select board approve and sign the integrated contract between the town of Westwood and the SEIU Local 888 for the period from July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2019, contingent upon their approval and execution of the same.
And I'll second that. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. And then lastly, along the collective bargaining stream, the fire union FY21, this comports to the 2% COLA, Joan, that we had approved for all of the units. Is there much more to it than that?
There is nothing more to it than that.
And this is for a 1-year extension?
1-year contract for fiscal year 21. All other terms of the existing contract remain the same. It's just the 2% COLA. And then we will begin negotiating soon for a 3-year successor contract for fiscal year 22 through 25, 22, 24.
And have they approved?
They have signed. The
Yeah,
fire
They approved and
union-
signed?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is signed.
Actually, in the book side, yeah.
Okay, I move that the select board approve and sign a memorandum of agreement for a 1-year contract extension with the Westwood Permanent Firefighters Association, Local 1994, IAFF.
I will second. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you for that, Joan and Chris. I know that was a lot of work. Thank you both.
Great, you're welcome.
Okay, so next up, Rich, you have great news for us, it sounds like.
It's a nice way to
so,
get.
Came here to talk about Westwood Day 2020 today. To give you a little bit of background, as you may know, planning for Westwood Day takes about 8 months. It starts in February and it pretty much ends the day before Westwood Day. And as of right now, much of the logistical work for a normal Westwood Day has been completed. There is still quite a bit that would need to be done. One of the biggest items would be just procuring tables, chairs, tents, and all that. That still hasn't been done. In terms of readiness, we're seeing a significant fall off in sponsor donations and a very limited amount of interest by our vendors who fill up Vendor Village. As you may recall, we get about 125 or more vendors every year. It's a big part of Westwood Day. Right now, we're at about 50% of where we normally would be. For our sponsors, we're probably less than 20% of where we normally would be. And our sponsor revenue is 70% of our total revenue for the day. So it's a big, there's a big gap there. Obviously, businesses have been closed for some time and they're having difficulty with marketing money. And that we believe is the biggest reason for the drop off there. So we
Rich,
have.
can I just add something in?
Please,
Do you mind
go
if I
ahead.
just add something in? Just so Rich and I have been talking about this, and I just want to say, and I should have opened up with this, and I apologize for that, but Rich and his team have been working very hard on Westwood Day as well as summer programs, and they've been doing a fabulous job, and they are ready for a traditional Westwood Day. I think the challenge this year is a couple of things. Rich mentioned the vendors. The other things that have gone on is we have 2 neighboring communities for their community day have been rescheduled from what it was previously, I believe in May, to September 26th, which is the same day as what we have advertised for our Westwood Day. So the vendors are going to have a challenge with COVID, as well as being able to spread themselves out in potentially 3 different communities. We've also done some research with another neighboring community that has canceled their day, their event as well. So I just wanted to say to Rich and his team for the work that they've continued to do simultaneously while trying to read through numerous pages of guidelines for summer camps, as well as how those guidelines would apply to Westwood Day. So Rich, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. So at the beginning, I mentioned a normal Westwood Day. Well, based on the guidance that we have from the state currently, and with the help of our health director trying to interpret those guidelines, the feeling would be that if we were to run Westwood Day this year, we would need to reconfigure it. The food court would need to go away. Whatever food vendors we would get would need to be spread out throughout the campus. And the thought and concern we have is that at this point, reconfiguring Westwood Day would present significant logistical challenges to do that at this late date, given the fact that, as Chris mentioned, we are still, our summer camp starts on Monday, and with all the new guidelines that we have to adhere to for COVID, and we're also in a new venue this year, we've had, and the guidance came out 3 weeks ago, we've really had to work and focus on getting ready for summer camp. And as soon as we do that, we have to turn our focus to fall programming, which starts on September 1st. And that's going to be, that needs to be reconfigured as well. We need to get space. We still have to talk to the schools about space like we did for the summer camp. So there's a lot of work that would need to get done, because we generally operate on a 3-month lead time, and that's going to be very compressed. So the point being is to run summer camps and get fall programming going, it's going to leave us very little time to even finish a normal Westwood Day, and we have to reconfigure Westwood Day significantly in order to make it safe for the community. And of course, that's the primary concern, right? So that's the challenge that we're facing right now. So,
Rich, I'll just say, I think, you and your team have always done such a great job, and it goes off so well. But if we're going to do it, it has to be done right.
yes.
And we don't know, as we sit here today, what the structure of the schools are going to look like. We don't know what the structure of competitive youth sports looks like. So I think we have to pull the plug sooner rather than later. So, we'll miss it, and we look forward to 2021.
Right.
But I think it's the right call. Nancy, have you any thoughts?
Yeah, I know Rich didn't actually say that's what the recommendation is, but that's, we can hear that that's where you're going. I mean, there's so much that we have asked everybody to do. And I think you're right, John. I mean, if we're going to do it, we want to do it right. To go through the effort, as you've described, of what would be involved to pull off something that is much less than what we normally would have, doesn't really seem like a fair allocation of our human resources. And to try to get vendors to participate when their minds are elsewhere as well is, a double problem. And then icing on the cake is other communities going for the same date. That's a challenge that we haven't had before. So it's like a perfect storm of a reason not to go forward. So I supported the recommendation of canceling 2020 Westwood Day as well.
We did discuss it at the last rec commission meeting on June 1st, and there was general support for this, for taking a pause for 1 year and then, looking forward to Westwood Day 2021, which we would start planning in January, February of next year.
Right. It's an amazing event, and we're so
Yes.
fortunate that it's been rejuvenated as it was a few years back. And brought back to the town. And we can miss a year, and let's focus where we need to be focusing.
And Rich, I would only say, if the cancellation allows some capacity to think about the event, maybe there's some things we can do a little differently or more or add on, and reimagine it a little bit in 2021.
Sure.
So it might be a positive in the long run.
Absolutely. We would certainly welcome any ideas if you have some. And we'll certainly look for some ourselves as well.
Yeah, no, and it's a great event, but it's, those are the types of events that if you don't reimagine it every so often, it can get stale. And I don't think we're there yet, but do we actually need to take a vote on this?
Yes, I think we do.
So, Mr. Chair, I would, Rich and I have discussed this, and we recommend to the select board to cancel Westwood Day 2020.
Okay.
Okay, I will move that the select board proceed with canceling Westwood Day 2020, due in large part to the COVID-19 pandemic, and at the recommendation of our town administrator and our interim recreation director.
And I'll second that. And then I'll ask Mrs. Hyde for your vote.
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Rich, you're doing the right thing. It's a sad that we have to, but I know Chris speaks so highly of everything you're doing for the department. And I know John and I and Michael appreciate your stepping in and taking over. It's really such a challenging time. So keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good luck with the camps.
Rich, thank you to you and your team. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're on to appointments and reappointments of the boards and committees. So we review this list as kind of the part of our reorganization of the board and what member of the select board will serve on the various boards throughout the town. Nancy, looking at the list, I think the only one I have a question on is the John J. Cronin Public Service Award. And does that typically go with the chair? Or
It does.
I don't feel strongly either way, but that was
Oh, it does. It goes with the chair.
So I think looking at this list then, the packet, page 39, the only amendment I think is under member, fourth line down, Nancy Hyde would change to John Hickey. And my suggestion is, I'm open to suggestions, is that everything else stays the same.
Yeah, and on that one, it's Chris Coleman who will make the appointment for the Cronin committee. But I have to say, I agree with you. I don't think there's a reason to make any change. And we're all in the local emergency planning. Chris, do you see any need to make any changes?
No, not this time, no.
Yeah. Well, I do have a suggestion. Since Michael's not here, why don't we give everything to him? Isn't that the way it goes?
That was always a tradition. If you missed a meeting during appointments, you were at risk, Mrs. Hyde.
Well,
Listen,
okay.
I missed the last meeting, so I have to be merciful.
Oh, okay. All right. Then I'll go along with that. I move that we appoint select board members to boards and committees as set forth in our packet, with the exception of the John J. Cronin Public Service Award Committee, which will be done separately by the town administrator. And in doing these appointments, we would all be getting reappointed to the committees we served on this past year.
Okay, I will second that motion and then ask Mrs. Hyde of your vote.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm on page 40. Okay, that was that motion. Okay, page 41. So the aid to the elderly and infirm. Tish, do you want to just take me through this? Are we reappointing everybody?
No, the only ones that you're reappointing would be anything that's in purple, anything that is in black. I've reached out to those members, but I have not heard back if they would like to stay on the board.
Oh, okay. So how do we do this? Do I nominate the people in purple?
You can do that.
Well, I would do the nominating, John, if you want.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I mean, it's up to you if you want to read them first, but I'll make the motion. So whatever you as chair would like to do.
Usually we do it by the board, right? By the board name.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. So the aid to the elderly and infirm, I would nominate Patrick Ahern, Lena Arena DeRosa, James Gavin, Janice Pullen, Tricia Conley, Albert
No.
Liz-
No,
Nope.
don't do
Nope.
Pat.
Just
Don't
in
do the ones in
purple.
black.
Just
Sorry.
in purple.
Yeah, so Patrick Ahern, Lena Arena DeRosa, James Gavin, Janice Pullen, Pamela Dukeman, Josepha Jowdy, John Curran, and again, Michael Walsh.
Okay. I move we appoint those members to
Second.
the elderly.
Sorry,
Okay.
a second. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Okay.
And then we're skipping air traffic noise abatement, Tish.
Right, correct. He
Okay.
doesn't want to serve.
And then the American with Disabilities Act coordinator, I would nominate Christopher Coleman.
So moved.
So nothing on the auditor committee or the Board of Health at this time. So we're on to page 42.
Do you want it, John, do you want to do each one as we go along or do it collectively with one motion at the end? We did the aid to the elderly separate, but we can do it all as a group.
Oh, no, let's do it as a group.
Okay.
Want to make a
So-
motion?
Okay, so I'll withdraw that motion on the American Disability Act coordinator and save it for a larger motion.
Okay,
So the Building Survey Board, John Decker's Cemetery Commission, Christopher Coleman and Brendan Ryan.
and
And
Thomas
Tom.
Aaron. And
Oh.
Thomas Aaron as well.
Procurement Officer Christopher Coleman, Commission on Disability, just Lena Arena DeRosa and Marianne Cardy.
And Mary Sethna.
All right, you know what, I'm just
Second
having a
with that.
problem seeing the colors.
Okay,
John, do you want me to read it?
Yeah, sorry. I
No,
can't see
it's
the
okay.
colors.
I know you've got an eye issue. That's fine.
Yep.
So that's Commission on Disability Communication Technology Advisory Board, Christopher Coleman, Donna McClellan, and Melinda Garfield. Compensation Agent, Christopher Coleman. Conservation Commission, Karen Skinner-Catrone. Council on Aging, Jesse Turbane, Mary Basiello, and Marjorie Aramo. DPW Director Todd Corchin. Election officers as indicated, because I'm not going to read all those names.
46.
It will be documented, yep. Fair Housing Director Christopher Coleman, Fire Chief John Deckers, Forest Warden John Deckers, Historical Commission Jack Patterson, Housing Partnership Fair Housing Committee Lou Rizzoli, Kathleen Wynn, Abraham Glazer, Sarah Bouchard, Christopher Coleman, Lean Process Board Mark Murphy, James Gavin, Local Emergency Planning Committee Donna McClellan, Ken Aries, Todd Corchin, Joe Doyle, Paul Sicard, Paul Jocular, Jeff Silva, Melinda Garfield, Karen Skinner-Catrone, Tiffany McCarthy, Lena Arena DeRosa, Christopher Coleman, John Deckers, and Brendan Ryan. Massachusetts School Building Authority, Skip. Municipal Hearings Officer Christopher Coleman, MWRA Advisory Board, Robert Rafferty, Todd Corchin. Parking Clerk Christopher Coleman. You're going to be a busy guy, Chris. Head Bike and Safety Committee, Steve Olenoff, Abigail McCabe, Paul Sicard, Christopher Coleman, Recreation Commission, Anne Marie Delaney, Register of Voters, Marjorie Ramo, Westwood Cultural Council, Nancy Donahue, WEAC, Westwood Environmental Action Committee, Steve Hart, Tom Philbin, and Youth and Family Services, Trish Tuck, Danielle Sutton, and Mary Ellen LaRose.
And then there's some new members on that, which are some student members that we need
Okay,
to.
so in Youth and Family, so I'll also add, oh, that's a tough color.
I know, it's green.
Maeve Hutton, Eli Wasserman, Brian Cole or Cote?
Cole.
Cole.
Melissa DePina and Paul Marino. So I move we make those appointments just listed.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
and John Lally for ZBA. So he was the last one.
Oh, but he's in blue.
Oh, sorry, he should be in purple. So
Okay, I'll
my bad.
amend the motion to include ZBA appointment of Jack Lally to the ZBA, yeah.
All right, that's,
And I will second that, and I will ask for your vote, Mrs. Hyde.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. And then Tish, when I look at packet page 50, is that a listing of like what we have? Okay, just the vacancies. Okay, great.
that's just vacancies as of right now. I'll
Yeah.
keep updating that. Well, as of right now, before you made the appointment, so I will make the update.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we got some work to do though.
I do, yeah,
No, I mean, all of us finding some people, you know?
Yep.
okay,
Um,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're on to page 51. Okay, so we've had, Chris, I'll let you take the lead on discussions surrounding the creation of a human rights task force.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so, Mr. Chair, we have a number of matters that are going on both in and outside of Westwood. And one of the things that I would like to do is I'd like the board's support in creating a human rights task force. Now, the objective of this task force is to address matters that are in Westwood, but also to understand what's happening outside of Westwood, so we're better prepared to deal with them as if in the event that that wave were to enter Westwood. But also really to educate, to help the community, and to also be a resource for the community to go to. This task force, my recommendation is for this task force to be appointed by the town administrator. And they would be they'd be looking at a number of different things. It'd be a very diverse group. And I would certainly ask the select board members to provide me with some recommendations as far as names of individuals whom you feel from the community side, that would be a good resource or possible addition to this group. My thinking is what I would like to see for this task force would be representation from our local clergy, the Westwood Commission on Disabilities, Westwood Affordable Housing Authority, Westwood Youth and Family Services, from our police department, and from our school department. And again, we would also have representatives from the community as well. But we're looking for a diverse group to help the community, to help educate the community, and again, to serve as a resource for the community.
I think
Oh, I
it's
think
great,
it's-
Chris. Yeah, we've previously had initiatives, but it's been a while since we had something like this. I think with your leadership, Chris, this will be great.
Thank you.
I agree, Chris, and I will definitely think about maybe some potentials, who you could meet with and see if it helps. And then the only other thing, Chris, I think it's great. Youth and Family Services obviously is a great asset. It was nice to see we had a number of student members that we just appointed tonight. So it'd be nice to also include one of them as well. But I
Yes.
think it's a great idea, and I give you a lot of credit for taking the initiative. on
And
that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm remiss. We will have a representative from the school department as well.
Yeah, I think it's on there.
I don't believe I said that, though.
Oh,
I
okay.
just want to make
You
sure
did.
I said that.
You did.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. In the past, we had the involvement of the director of Metco and I forget what the title was. Pat, do you remember what Av Breen's title was? It wasn't assistant superintendent, but it's kind of like the assistant superintendent position.
I thought she was assistant superintendent for curriculum.
That might be. So anyway, it was administrative participation, which was very valuable. And I know our clergy have had considerable turnover in town in some areas, and there have been some people who have been here for a while. So I think we need to identify someone who can make this added commitment to their schedules, because that's a very important role. And maybe one of the rabbis from the synagogue would be willing to serve.
I have a number on speed dial if you support it. I'm ready to go.
Yeah, well, they're members of the community, both as clergy, but also as residents, as our clergy is for the most part. So, but they've played an important role in other matters previously, and they're really very, very wonderful people.
Great.
So it'd be
Great.
nice.
Okay, so are we making a motion on that?
I don't think we do. Oh, do we, Chris?
You need a,
I
mo-
We authorize you to proceed with it? Is that what
I
you'd
bel-
like?
I believe you need a motion,
Yes.
Mrs. Hyde.
Okay, so I move that we authorize Christopher Coleman, Town Administrator, to proceed with establishing a Human Rights Task Force, and that as members of the board, we will provide recommendations and suggestions for membership of the task force.
I'll second that. And then Mrs. Hyde,
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Chris, thank you so much for
Yeah, great
taking the
work.
lead on this.
Thank you for your support.
So next up, we're going to talk about future select board meeting dates. And I know what's kind of hovering over this is whether or not we'll need a special town meeting to deal with some of the articles that we couldn't deal with at last week's, or we chose not to deal with at last week's town meeting. And that fall town meeting date, if held, would be November 9th, 2020. The last date to cancel a potential fall town meeting is September 15. So we're meeting, our next meeting after today is July 13th, and then August 3rd, August 24th, September 8th or 9th, and that's to be determined, but at least we can establish the next two, which is July 13th and August 3rd. I think that's plenty, Nancy. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I agree. I just want to say, and I want to say something and ask a question. So we have, per the charter, a fall town meeting date of November 9th that we can opt out of. So my question, Chris, is when do you think, to the extent you have a sense at this point, that we may decide we actually want to have a meeting earlier than November 9th, in which case we would call a special town meeting? Do you have a timeline in your head yet, or are you and Pam still contemplating that and just hitting the pause button?
Pam and I are still discussing that, and then we will also include Mr. Ahern in that conversation as well.
Okay, because I think that's going to be very important from a planning standpoint in terms of our meeting dates and having the Finance Commission be ready. So if we do it earlier, it just condenses things. If we can live with the November 9th, that would be better, I think, for all
I
involved.
agree.
Okay, so I'm fine with what you've said, John, with the dates.
Yeah, I just don't want to go much beyond July 13th and August 3rd without Michael being here.
Right.
Are you
So-
available for July 13th at 5 PM instead of 7 PM?
Oh, I can do
If
5
you
PM
need
on
us.
both.
Now, do you want to do August 3rd at 5 PM as well?
I think so. I mean, my sense is that people are watching the video after the fact. So I think the time is kind of irrelevant at this point. So 5 is fine.
All right,
Fine with me as well.
make that change.
All right, so we're settled on that. We want to go to the approval of minutes. I didn't have any issues, Nancy, do you?
Okay, so I had, just got to call up the dates. I had minor edits that I passed on to Tish last time. So those are incorporated, right, Tish?
Yes, I forward those to both John and Michael.
Yeah, I was
Revised.
fine.
So,
For just May 15th and May 21st, no revisions on May 26th. That I saw. You submitted revisions for May 15th, okay.
yeah, I've got to go back to the dates at the beginning of my. Okay, so I'll start by moving approval of the minutes from May 15th, 2020.
Second. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
I'll move that we approve the May 21st, 2020 minutes.
I will second and ask for your vote.
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
And I move approval of the May 26th, 2020 minutes.
I will second and ask for your vote.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Excellent.
Good on those, Tish?
I am, thank you.
Okay. Other business that may properly come before the board and public and press. Melinda, is there anybody in queue or anybody looking to engage?
There are no people on the line.
All right. So I think at this time, the board will be moving into executive session. The select board will be going to executive session to discuss 3 issues: Two of these issues are pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for union personnel, specifically for the Westwood Police Association and the DPW union. And the third, pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22F and G, to comply with any general law for review of executive session minutes, all of which would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governing body if discussions were in open session. This board will not be returning to open session.
I move we go into executive session for the aforementioned reasons.
I will second that. Mrs. Hyde?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Okay, thank you all very much. Our next meeting is on July 13th at 5 p.m.